So last week we talked about. We didn't get a demo from Jasmine last week. Indexing dynamic permission. Do we want a demo from Jasmine this week about indexing dynamic permissions?
Yes.
Does he want to do one? Jasmine is on strike. We talked about harvest and a workshop. So this week, 3/3/2020, topics we'll see, demos. We have the wonderful Sipke who wants to do something.
Yeah, I'm going to show you guys Pulumi in action.
It will take 2 hours. Then we have, who does want to do something, to show something?
Probably for another look at
Or Zoltan and Dean are fighting about doing something. That's okay. I also suggest we just let Zoltan and Mathis talk together because they like to talk. So they can just drive the meeting.
We can say one time.
Is that it for the demos? I think we should be good. I don't know about what it will be because they were just talking about over each other, but that's okay. Sipke, we know. Then topics, demo, status. We'll see. Let's start with the nice topic. Harvest. So I have a suggestion. Based on the ongoing events, I am wishing to just cancel harvest because it hasn't started and because I don't want to have to cancel it a few weeks before harvest. Right now, all the travels from Microsoft employees are on a business essential rule, meaning I assume you've heard that the MVP summit has been cancelled as a summit. We were supposed also to have a team week in Microsoft where all the remote employees come to the office, and this has also been cancelled. So everyone had to cancel their trips. It's like just a week before. Fortunately for them, it didn't cost anything because it was Microsoft paying. For the MVP summit, it's different. And I don't think we should organize anything in London, even with or without me, because I won't be allowed probably to join. Knowing that there are so many unknowns about the evolution of the spread of the virus, that maybe London will be blocked, maybe Washington or Bellevue will be blocked, we don't know, or also asking 50 people from everywhere to meet in a closed basement, because this is what it is, for 3 days. And I don't think it's very safe to, in terms of health, but also in terms of organization, to have so many risks, unknowns, to organize something right now. So, opinions?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So does anyone think we should still do it?
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah, it's just unfortunate, isn't it? But it's the way it is.
Yeah.
So it's just postponing until things settle down. But yeah, I haven't even talked about that to Dan, who suggested to use their room, so I will. But I think it's the safest choice right now, and also the most secure in terms of organization, because we never know what things could prevent people from joining, like, I don't know, should we allow, like, do people from Italy will be okay to? I'm not even sure. Does UK allow people from Italy to go to UK still? I know some countries have blocked people from Italy, and they might also do it from people from Washington, from France, or whatever country that is also hit like this. So it's too risky in terms of organization to just say, oh, by the way, we only 3 because everyone else didn't come. And
It's true.
so, yep. Thank you, Sika.
I also see that my company I'm working for, many of their employees who visited, well, some of them visited Italy, they're not allowed back in for a while. So, and I have more examples like that.
So, I work in Redmond for Microsoft, and the first death last Saturday in the US was in Kirkland, which is a city right north of Redmond. I actually biked a mile away from where the people were from. As of today, there are now 8 deaths in the same city, like 5 minutes from work, okay? And they found 2 new cases in the southeast of Bellevue.
Oh.
So today, from people, from men who are in their 20s. So it's not just the location where it was for the first. They found 50 cases in the same nursing home, and now they found 2 more cases outside of this city in the southeast. So yeah, we have no idea how far it will spread, even in Washington or around Bellevue, Seattle.
Also, it's really not just the elderly or the very young infants.
Well, they are the most at risk, but anyone can be infected. But so yeah, it happened that the 50 people who were identified were from the same nursing home, including the workers there. But now it's not just that anymore in our region. So it's very located also in Washington and also the West Coast, Oregon and California. So that's why they also decided to cancel the MVP summit, to cancel the team meeting, and yeah. And I can tell you that there are very few people working in the offices right now in Redmond. That's it. Okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they closed the school north of Kirkland because they found a high school student who had the virus, so they closed the school. I think so.
Yeah, our primary schools are also in full panic mode, but I just shrug it off because chances are next to 0 that you get it. So
yeah, it depends on the location. Yes, but also because we take precautions. That's why also we do that, because we.
Yeah, it's for me it's a bit over the top, but okay, but.
Depends where you are. When it will be 5 kilometers from your home, you will maybe think differently.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I will think the same.
Yeah, but the issue is that if you have kids at school, it can take 2 days that the kid from another patient goes at the same school, and then the whole school is, like
they have like a 98% chance of survival, kids. It's like the elderly and the sick that it's a problem, but anything for the elderly and the sick is a problem. So
yeah, but one kid who has that can spread that to 3 different grandparents and done. So that's why you want the kids not to have that also, because they will be spreading it everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
That's the reason. If we are healthy and young, that's fine for us to survive. But to be able to share it with people who can't, who are at risk, then that's a different issue.
Yeah, but you should just avoid these elderly and sick people for the time being, and not
also. But you don't choose, and they don't choose, and the best way is to just don't have it, and then you're sure you're not sharing it. Yeah, that's yeah. So demos. Oh, topics. Sorry, status. Orchard 1 fetched already. So we didn't merge anything last week, but I think we checked everything for Orchard 1 PRs and issues. Orchard Core. So this week we focused mainly on issues. Last week we had done some lots of PR work. So if I look at the date, it was 25th. So here we were around that. Doesn't show the exact date. Okay. Okay. Fix samesite cookie issue. I think we talked about it. Thank you, Mathis, for that. Taking into account every single browser category to return the correct default value for samesite. Throw exception when part type or field is invalid. Let me check. Yes, ensuring that we can't provide an invalid content type name or content field name, part name. Use sender field when testing SMTP settings. Fixing a test from Pete Davis, who also participated to the PRs to fix the support of sender and from fields for SMTP settings. Joe Berkeley, a new committer, I assume. I check to see if HTTP workflows are enabled before action. Okay, just a comment here. So this check is not necessary because the log warning check call will do it. We usually do a check when computing the string passed to the log warning can consume memory. Then we do a check. But in this case, it is not consuming any memory because it's using the correct pattern, which is a static string and a named parameter. Okay. So this check is not necessary. It doesn't hurt, but it's not necessary. Fix jQuery error, bin. Okay. Issues in jQuery usage. Remove a static localizer, refactoring the code so that we don't assign localizer to static properties. I think we talked about it last week. And gently fixed it. Yes, so the idea is that this method is no more static and resolves the string localizer on demand when we need to validate these values, these URLs. Updated fluid.core version because James Olstead fixed an issue with limit and offset properties on the queries. So Antoine updated the version. Craig, adding a new option to the content picker. So the content picker, you could select which content types you wanted to display in the list when you will search for a content item. Now there is a new option which is display all content types. So it's a checkbox, and when you check it, it will show it for all the content types by filtering the stereotype for the content stereotype, which is empty actually. Yep. And I assume this way, if you add a new content type, then you won't have to select it also. Maintain content item ID across BagPart.ContentItems. So before this code, every time you will change the elements of a BagPart, even updating some properties, it will regenerate some content item JSON payload for each of the BagPart items. And their content item IDs then will be unique but new. And it will cause issues when you do workflows and you look, well, I'm not sure it was an issue with the workflows, but the workflow will not have this behavior. And Dean also agreed that it was an issue for routing for containers, so Dean fixed it. So now the content item IDs are immutable, even for BagParts, which is good. Fix string localizer reference, so this one is not used, or the name has been changed. Recipe property step based on some feedback we had last week on another PR. This is a new step that will let you define customized properties on the recipe file. So if you want to customize the recipe file as part of your deployment plan, you had this step, and then you will be able to set all these properties from the UI. Let me check. Yes, from the UI. Okay. So good. Thank you, Antoine. Questions?
Nope.
Okay. Demos. So let's start with Sipke, and we have to hope that he will let some time for Zoltan and Dean.
Yeah, I don't think it will take too long. We'll see. Of course, there's a bit of waiting when creating resources in Azure.
What?
What's that?
Okay, go on.
All right. So let me start sharing my screen first. All right. So what I want to show you guys is Pulumi, which is is a way to programmatically create cloud resources in Azure or AWS or a bunch of others that they support. And and I want to show you how it works in the context of an Orchard application, but it works for any website that you want to deploy. So this is deploying infrastructure, or it supports the notion of infrastructure as code. So what this allows you to do is define your infrastructure literally as code. And that's very powerful because it allows you to create, for example, your Azure app service or even a Kubernetes cluster programmatically, so you don't have to do it manually. And of course, there's tooling out there already, such as Terraform and others, but they call it infrastructure as code, but really they are mostly a bunch of YAML files or configuration files. And what I think is unique about Pulumi is it enables you to express your infrastructure truly as code. So in my case, I use C#. They also support Python, JavaScript and TypeScript. So yeah, so what I did for this demo is I prepared a small Orchard Core website. It's very basic. I haven't added anything but a simple custom module with just one feature. It has a setup page here. So what I'm going to show you is how to deploy this to Azure, but I'm not going to create the resources in Azure manually. I'm going to do it using Pulumi. So let's have a look at Azure. This is my own account. So what we're going to do is just have it create a resource group, and then I want to create an app service plan, an app service that will host the Orchard website, and an Azure SQL server and a database, and then we'll use that connection string to set up Orchard. And that part, setting up Orchard, I'm doing that manually. Ideally, I would also automate that. So I can execute a recipe, for example, but I don't know enough about Orchard Core yet. So that might be for some other demo. So let's get started. So the way it works with Pulumi, you create a project, and that could be a C# project, or it could be a TypeScript project, or any of the supported languages. So what I did, I created a C# project, obviously, which I have here. So I call it orchard.infra.shared. I have it open here in JetBrains Writer. It's a very simple file, actually. It might be a little bit long-winded because it's defining the resources, but the structure is very simple. It's just a program file, and all you do is just define a bunch of resources. So I'll walk you briefly through each of them. It's not that many. So we start, as I mentioned, with a resource group that we define here. An important concept of Pulumi I forgot to mention is they have this concept of stacks. And what a stack is, it's represents an instance of your Pulumi project. So this project represents my infrastructure of my website, if you will. Again, that's the Azure App Plan, the app service, the database. And a stack is an instance of it, and that would represent an entire environment. For example, you could have a staging environment and a production environment, maybe even a testing environment, or maybe even a environment for feature brands. So you could automatically spin up an entire environment to test out a particular feature and tear it down once you're done with it. So that's the notion of stacks. And here I'm reading the current stack name and then I use it in some strategic locations. For example, I like to use the environment name as part of the resource so that when I'm in Azure, I can make a distinction between the various environments that I created. So that's the resource group. Some storage accounts. I'm not actually using it at this point, but I intended to use it to configure Orchard and enable some of the Azure features so that some stuff would be stored there, maybe media. I am building my Orchard website as a Docker container. So for that, I need an Azure container registry, which I'm defining here using a basic SKU. And then I mentioned the SQL server that I'm creating here. And on that SQL server, I will create a database. And then once the database is created, I'm building up a connection string that I will be exporting. An export or an output, as they call it, can be used by other Pulumi projects if you want to use it. And that's useful, for example, if you have, for example, a microservices-oriented architecture where you have a shared platform consisting of, for example, a Kubernetes cluster and a key vault, or actually that's another good example, but the cluster is a good example, and a Azure container registry. So that will be the shared infrastructure. But then, of course, you have your microservices projects, and each of them, they might also need some infrastructure that's specific to a microservice. For example, a database and a key vault, some blob storage, that sort of thing. But if you use Docker images, then you need to push them to the container, but that's a shared resource, the container registry. So you would export that connection string to the container registry as an output of this Pulumi program, and then other Pulumi programs can import those or reference those stacks, if you will. That's a very nifty feature of Pulumi, I think. Anyway, I'm just exporting it here as an example. But I do need the DB connection string. I'm setting it here as part of my app service setting somewhere, or I'm not seeing it. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So that's the DB connection string. Then I'm creating a app service plan using the Linux OS because I'm gonna host the Docker container there. Here I'm actually creating an app service for the website with some settings. And here's the connection strings. It's a separate section. So here I'm setting the DB connect string, but I'm not actually using it for the website because, as you know, when you set up an Orchard website, you have to specify the connection string in the setup screen. What I want to do ultimately is use this string and automatically set up the website. But that's something I need to investigate a little bit further. And that's the end of it. And here I'm just exporting a bunch of stuff as an example, but I'm not actually using it. And so in this case, it's a useless example for you guys. But yeah, I have it there anyway. So again, this will create all of these resources. You use the command line a command line tool called Pulumi to run this program. Of course, you can integrate it with CI/CD systems, for example, Git Actions, GitLab, DevOps. There's the whole any CI/CD system is supported, of course, because it has a command line. So let's run this. So the way it works, you enter your command and then you say Pulumi up. As you notice, I am in the correct directory. This is the directory containing my Pulumi project. The first thing it will ask is to create a stack. So let's create a staging app. A staging stack, I should say. And the first thing it does, it's gonna. So the way Pulumi works, it works with a desired state system, similar to Terraform. Oh wait, what's it saying? Oh yes. So an important setting that I need to configure is the Azure location. It needs to know what region to use. So let's do P is my alias for Pulumi. I configure that manually. And so let's say config that Azure location West Europe. Now let's try it again. So as I was saying, it works with the desired state system, and this program will build up a model, a Pulumi model, and then that will be applied by the Pulumi servers. And I will show you that service in a second. It's free for life, the service for developers. They do have a SaaS model where you can pay for a subscription if you're an organization. But everything is open source, so you are free to host it yourself if you wanted to. Oh yes, and this is a variable I set myself, or it's a configuration setting. That's I need to set the setting as well. That's my SQL password. I could generate it, but I configured it to be set manually. So let's set that as well. Hopefully it will now work. Okay, so this is the preview. So it's going to create these resources listed here. And then it's asking me if I want to continue, and then I say yes. So now it's actually going to create these resources. And if I switch to the service that I mentioned, let me refresh. So it created one stack called staging. It knows that it started a few seconds ago. And it's this service that will also actually then apply the changes on Azure. So it created the resource group. So maybe we can already see it in Azure itself. Doesn't seem that way, so maybe it will create it after or in a while. Or maybe I'm logged into the wrong Azure account. That's also a possibility. It uses the same Azure connection that you use when you use the AZ command. That's the Azure CLI. I didn't check beforehand, so it's going to be a surprise.
Someone is paying for it. That's what matters.
Indeed.
And also, fortunately, you make a resource group, so it will be easy to delete everything.
Yeah, for sure. And that's also the nice thing. It's easily spun up, but also torn down with the destroy command.
So, is it the Pulumi service that is creating the assets, or is it your command line tool? Is the command line tool communicating to Azure directly, or is it communicating to the Pulumi site that calls Azure?
The latter, yes, the latter. So the CLI communicates with the Pulumi service, and Pulumi service creates and maintains the state. So it knows the current state, and then when I perform another up command, it will do a delta, and then the differences will be applied. So then now it's creating everything, but when I make a change in my program and I do a Pulumi up again, it will calculate the delta and then apply the delta, and the service will apply the delta, not the CLI. At least this is my understanding. I might be wrong.
And it's still running?
Yes, actually, yeah. Indeed, it's interesting because everything's created, but it's still saying creating.
I just need to hit the refresh button. But there is nothing.
Maybe am I in different subscription? Yep. Check what I'm logged in as. I think if there's a command that shows me the current context of my Azure account. Oh, AZ account maybe. Oh, that's showing all of my accounts. Okay, that's useless. Well, it's still working at least.
So for the initialization, we had exactly the same problem that when you deploy the site, you needed to still initialize it. So that's why we created the auto setup more functionality. Then you can execute the recipe when your tenant starts.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's still a PR, right?
Yes, still a PR.
What are you waiting for? Me?
Probably.
Because we made some comments at some point about changes to do.
Yeah, I asked you again what were those comments, but I forgot.
Ah. So it's you.
No, I asked you that I forgot something, so it's you.
So I have to find the comments I made. I will.
You have the notes. You have the notes.
The notes. Wait, it must have been part of a meeting. So
I demoed it.
Okay, so we'll find the meeting with the comments then. Gabor will help us. He's got all the.
I think we talked about should it also spin up tenants with default recipes and things like that. I think we talked about something like that.
Okay, we'll see. I will find it back. Okay.
I think there's a service area, but yes, you get the idea. If it works, it's great, and then all the resources will be there, and you can just push to, well, in my case, to my Docker container, and that will automatically deploy the site, and then it's repeatable.
That's cool, and yes, it will be even cooler when we have the net command line tool that will be able to generate sites and tenants
Yes,
without
that would
user
be
interaction.
that would be awesome. Yes, I'm looking forward to that VR being merged.
Good. Thank you, Sipke. Next in line is Zoltan, because we don't hear him that often, and because he's second on my list, as you can see here.
Yeah, that's the important part. That I'm second on.
I can share your screen. You don't need my permission.
What should I do to get to be the first on your list?
Zoltan is muted, so maybe he's talking and we can't hear him. But he's not muted.
I hear him. I hear him.
Yeah. So, Sebastian, you can't hear me?
I can hear
Am I the only one?
Yes, you are the only one.
Okay.
I can hear Zoltan just fine.
Okay. So
it took me a while to recognize his voice.
It's my elbow. My elbow pushed the mute button, so all the speaker button, so I could not hear anyone. It's just when I saw Matthij's sound buzzing, I'm like, what? I don't hear him either. So sorry.
All right. Just be careful with your elbow. That's a general good advice. Okay, so what is this about? I made a little module called Publish Later.
Why you make a little module?
Because I didn't want to make a big one. I know that there are a lot of ideas floating around there with a huge thing, but we needed this functionality without adding a whole schedule task infrastructure to Orchard. So here it is. If you know the Publish Later module in Orchard 1, it's pretty much exactly the same. So once you enable it, you will get a Publish Later part. So I added it to blog post. Here it is. Nothing to configure. It will just work. And what will it do? Well, what will it do is that under blog post, now you have this Publish Later feature, which obviously to schedule the publishing of this content item. So if you set up a date time here and hit Publish Later, the content item will be saved, or the current version will be saved as a draft, and then at the given time, it will be automatically published by a background task. So let's also see it, because there are a few other things that will happen. This is demo 3. I already needed 2 iterations before this to make sure it actually works. And we have all these mandatory fields here. Okay, and now the fun part. Let's specify the date time here. It will be like 1 minute in the future, so we don't have to wait. It's 9 p.m. here. So it will be this one. All right. And as you can see, now we have this saved here, and we have a cancel publish button. So you can still cancel the publishing process from here. And in the summary admin list, you also have this little message here that this is published at that given time. So if we go here on the front end, it shouldn't be published yet. Yeah, so we should wait like a minute.
On Tuesday, March, not at.
Sorry?
On, not at.
Ah, that's right.
Well, you can ask an English speaker. There are many, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I used that.
That's okay. Well, nobody will blame you. I mean.
Yeah, nobody English speaking is using Orchard. Anyway, I will change it. Probably it is published now. Yeah, it is published now. So we see the beautiful demos right here. Yeah, it's beautiful. How this works, of course, that there is a background task. It's a simple background task, and here's the issue about the whole functionality. And under here, there are a lot of ideas about building a schedule task functionality. So much like it's in Orchard 1. So instead of just periodic background tasks, let's have something where you can schedule a task to be executed at a specific date time in the future. I didn't work on that. So that would be something related, and that's something that could be used by this feature. But with a simple background task, this will work as well. So unless you have like tens of millions of content items where running queries on to filter them is an issue, this will work. So I've submitted a PR for this. This is still a draft because I figured there will be probably some feedback now, like having grammatical errors.
Yeah, nobody will give you feedback if it's a draft.
yeah, no feedback now. And not if I incorporate this feedbacks from today, I will change it to not draft. Yeah, and important thing. This is this contribution.
So you can make the archive later.
That would be pretty much the same thing, though.
But you didn't make it. Okay.
I will think about it. Maybe yes. But I'm not sure how that would work. So let's. I mean, but the point is. So I will look up the feature request.
Super useful. People want to display a news and they say, okay, but next week just unpublish the news.
Oh, so it's unpublishing.
Yeah, it's archive. That's what it was called in Orchard 1, archive. There is an archive later module. So the same way you did the today, the drop down for the date for publish, there is another one for the unpublish.
Oh, I see. So it would be basically the opposite. I've never used the feature in Orchard 1.
It's really the same thing, just copy pasting the code, but with an unpublished code instead of publish. But you see that it's useful, like because like for news, you don't want it to be displayed after some time. So
yeah, I see. That's easy enough.
Cool.
Yeah, and one final note. This contribution is sponsored by a company, and this time not Lombic, but Vice Ratings. So we were actually contracted to do this. This site is on Orchard 1, but they are building something else on Orchard Core.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's in English, so you have to fix the text.
Yes, otherwise they will be angry.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that was it. Thanks.
Next. Who's next?
I guess that's probably me, is it?
Can you hear Dean? I can't hear him.
Who?
Hello, Dean?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
I think Seb is trolling you.
Yeah, Matthew seems to know me better than you, Dean. It's kind of surprising.
This is true. I think tonight I'm just reasonably tired. So we're doing a quick look at, we had a look at a couple of weeks ago at the idea of using a different part, a container route part, to essentially route taxonomies or items that are contained in a BagPart. So take a look at it again. It's been merged into the Autoroute part.
Wait. Last time you showed us the taxonomy routing and it was working, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll show you the same, but working as part of Autoroute.
As part of Autoroute. Okay.
So if we start with taxonomies, for example.
I don't remember when we talked about it. Can you refresh my memory and say why as part of the Autoroute? We talked about it, I'm sure, like, do we do two parts? Or and I told you to do a single part. Thank you, yeah. That's good. That's a good reason. And just because I forgot, I'm sure everyone else forgot, okay, not you. It's just because otherwise people would be so confused about all these parts just to have a URL that they will never know which one to use. So that's why I'm saying let's use a single part, the Autoroute part, with more options. Good job, Dean. Thanks.
So that's what we've got, is the Autoroute part with more options.
Wow.
So if we look at, say, the settings for it on our taxonomy, we have an Autoroute now, and you have a setting here to say whether or not you will route contained items, whether you're allowed to, so whether the user is allowed to check the box. And then you have another setting for whether the Autoroute can also manage items that are contained. And when you select that, you also get an option for whether or not they are allowed to use absolute paths, or whether paths should always be routed through the parent's route. So you get those settings, and then when you actually come to your taxonomy, for example, or your BagPart, you get the option to either enable that or disable that. When we apply the same Autoroute part to the term content itself, which I haven't done on this one because I did another one.
Everything makes sense now because it's an Autoroute part and you can add it to a taxonomy and a term. It's beautiful. So
it's easy. So when we publish this one, what you would have seen there is that the term part itself doesn't have an Autoroute part on it, so we just automatically generate a route for it based on the content item ID and the display text to begin with. If we want to make those a little bit nicer, we could look at, say, this bag part here. Actually, let's just view it.
You can have a night. Wow.
So you can have this one, which is just routed completely automatically, or you can have this one where the bag item has an Autoroute part on it. You can choose to refresh it. You can choose to make it absolute. And you could also continue to route contained items that were contained inside this. So you could have multiple nested if you wanted to. Might be going a little bit far. But if we look at the page that this generates, we end up with items that are just routed with a content item ID, or items that are auto-routed. And in this case, they're routed container first, then the...
But it could be anything.
It could be anything. Or we could go absolute and we'll just, you know,
wow.
just route it. And you could even make it the homepage if you really wanted to.
You can?
Yeah, I do need to actually do a little bit of work on that, but it would be possible. I'm not sure if it makes sense, but it'd be possible.
Yeah, it always makes sense for someone.
Yeah, someone will always want it. Yeah, so that's what we've got.
Wow. It's very good.
And really the questions are about kind of the options that you can set on the...
So my first impression of the options was that I don't understand what they do. So
that's fair enough, because I don't understand what they do half the time.
So they will need much more detail in the hint about examples, because like what's the container, what's the, I don't know, pattern, what will it look like, what if I check that, what happens, you know, like allow contained item routing. I'm like, is that what I think it is, or
what does that even mean?
That's why we need better examples on the right. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to need a good set of docs, because I mean, you can't screw it up, but you can screw it up.
Yeah. Or people will not understand that you can do that just by looking at a checkbox, maybe.
Yeah.
Or what if you check one and not the other? Or like manage contain item routes. Check to load this part to configure routes when the content item is contained. Yeah, is it just showing more options in the editor, which I think it is, or is it just showing an editor at all?
So it's a combination of showing more options, plus in order to validate routes correctly, you need to know whether it's a contained item or a parent item. And because when the display driver runs, it doesn't know whether it's stuck inside another content item or whether it's not. So when it wants to do a SQL query, it doesn't know. So because we've kept that kind of separation between those reasonably strong, so there's no kind of property that it can go, oh, am I contained inside another one, or am I just a parent? So we need to know that specifically for checking validation. Because one of the things that happens, which is unfortunate, but there's not much of a workaround for it. If you're editing here, for example, we can't validate a lot of these paths. If they're not absolute, we can't validate these paths until this parent here is published.
Okay.
So because, like I said, it doesn't know what it's contained in.
There is also a typo if you go at the bottom. Check to enabling the routing. Is it English?
Just the one typo?
I'm fixing your English because you're not from England, right?
Excellent. I think we could probably use that.
Okay.
So I'm hesitant to put too much more detail in the hints there, but it does need some and some good documentation, because not everybody understands the concept of container and contain.
Yeah.
It's a very orchard concept, I think.
Too technical, but yeah, just a little demo, little guide, and maybe some better hint to with concrete examples, like slash, just to show people like slash blue, slash light blue, slash super light blue. People will understand. Oh, I see. That's that, or something else. I don't know, but
yeah, something like that could work.
Yeah.
I did consider using. I don't know if you see it here. Using something like this as an indicator for whether it's an absolute or not, but I think that would probably be confusing for the content editors. They won't understand.
Yeah.
Where the developers might, but the developers will not be the people putting these routes in. Yeah, so that's that. That's
great.
what to see.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So I will be able to delete the branch I made 2 years ago or something like that about routing taxonomy.
Yeah.
And all the complexity, the complex solutions I had in mind.
Well, they're borrowed from some of your solutions. There's probably still a few things to talk about on some of the designs, for example. There's for example, the liquid event handler where you would retrieve a content item in your liquid template. That probably has the possibility to also retrieve a contained item now as well, and things like the alias part, but we can look at them later, I think.
Okay. I also wonder how you did that with the routing system or the endpoint routing.
Just with Autoroute entries, actually.
Okay.
So it remains part of the same transformer, and we just put the root values in. As you can see here, we can also generate those root values when we're using the display helpers.
That's great. Good job. Thanks a lot.
No trouble.
How much do you charge to make that?
Yeah, maybe today is free.
Good.
Since there is only one typo, I think today is free.
Okay. Thank you very much. And on time. Questions, comments, topics about anything, not just Dean? Oh, chat, or maybe not this window. Let me check. It's good. Comments I didn't do on Harvest. We still have an option to do an online version, but something we can talk about, that will be possible, but I don't know about how it would look like, because what I see is that when we do that for the other bigger tracks, at Microsoft at least, or for SBNet, I'm not sure how people are focused on that, because they have a work to do and they don't say, oh, let's take the day and just watch videos and look at it, because there is no communication like face-to-face, so people can get bored and disconnect. Also, time zone is an issue. Good thing is that then we get something recorded at least, and people working on content. That's a good way also to get some content on specific topics. So I don't know.
Yeah, and also there's something, it's something entirely different if you meet each other in person and you're in this room and watching it. It has this different vibe.
Yes,
that I think is really nice about
want an Harvest. Should we, as a backup plan, or as a
in case we won't be able to do it at all this year?
Then you would have to practice with your stream deck, Sebastian.
Why?
Last time I saw you with the buttons on the, I think it was the community stand-up.
No, the issue is that we will not use this thing. Yeah, I was the only one to be there to do the thing. It's crazy. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just mentioning maybe we could do something intermediate before we do an actual harvest.
I see.
See, like, okay, as a
pre-harvest.
Yeah, so to have something.
Well, it's true that speakers, they probably will want to prepare anyway, so might as well maybe do some screencasting beforehand, or you mean it would still be interactive or live, I mean, and then...
Yeah, that was my second question. How would it look like? Like, would it be like, we can also pre-record some session and just stream them and done, or do it live and have with more
something like Twitch.
Yeah, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Communication. Interactivity, thank you. Yeah. But Twitch is not interactive at all, just a chat. The way we do it with Teams is much more interactive, because you can ask questions, you can share screens, you can show.
But then
do we want that?
Maybe donate, and then you have a question. Make a little money.
Yeah, we don't care about making money.
Oh, you don't?
I don't. Not for this kind of thing, no. No, I have what I need. I don't care about it.
Yeah, okay, so...
But not for me, but maybe
you have so
others.
much that you don't care.
Exactly. I don't need to care about it. I have much more than enough, so that's good. But I mean, some others would, and if I do that, it's part of my work. I get paid indirectly.
I know. It was joking.
But if you or Sipke or someone else does it, it's time, like the time you spend on Autoroute. It's time that might not be retributed. So maybe you want to get paid for that, and I will be totally fine. I mentioned that for a workshop. If we do a workshop and someone speaks to it, we need to be able to pay those people, those pros, to do that. Okay.
Well, for me, my payment is having like a community of 140 developers working on.
And that's very good. Yeah.
Leading cutting edge technology that I get basically for free. So that's my payment.
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
For individual contractors, that they might need something else also for these timers. So contributing is fine. That's part of your participation to the full project to get back also. But for some people, it's also no. They need also to get paid for the time they spend on preparing the session and giving the workshops and everything. So yeah, so I'm just throwing the idea, and if you have opinions on that, or it might be also, let's do one day and 5 people talking, or whatever. Just let Dean talk for a day about something, whatever. We'll see. So yeah, or maybe just, okay, it's independent, but let's try to define some actual sessions we need to get and make them not live, like, okay, creating a theme, like tutorials, like video tutorials, video channel. That might be independent from that, but this is something we've talked about so many times. Yep. So open to IDs, Gitter, email, Skype, whatever. Plural site courses. What I don't like with that is you have to pay whatever you do. You have to pay for it. It's kind of sad. I like paid workshops when you are face to face and you can ask questions and you are there like a training session. That's what we wanted to do for Harvest also. And we can still do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can still do that on next Harvest. When we do the actual Harvest, we will do a workshop and have that. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Don't hesitate to throw your IDs and comment on the IDs from others. If you agree, disagree, you want to improve the IDs, so always good. Just a comment because we didn't mention that last week, and I know that he is here. Oh, he left. Tyson, Gibby, Hank. You know, he created a suggestion for a Stack Exchange room, and it needs more traction. It got good traction, but not enough to create it. Did you see that GitHub had created a discussion or questions and answers forum, something like that?
Really?
I saw that on Hacker News, but it's not active on the.
Yeah, because supporting people in Gitter is like.
It's a shame. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to find interesting questions back. But if you have a Q&A on GitHub, that would be perfect. Then you have a separation between issues and actual questions.
Does anyone have a link to that? I saw that on Hacker News 2 weeks ago with an example.
Maybe it's Q&A or something.
It's called discussion. Very recent one. Discussion forum.
Yeah, I saw a link how to create Q&A environments for GitHub.
On it. Discussions.
Yeah.
It's a discussions tab, and you can ask questions, and you have comments. So it's like issues, but then you can mark something as the answer, and you can also vote on the answers. You see, like Stack Overflow.
Is that a setting you need to enable?
Well,
I don't see it on my repo.
Yeah, so maybe it's opt-in, so I don't know why this one has it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it's called discussions, right? It's called discussions.
Maybe it's a preview feature or something.
Yeah, that might make
sense.
sense.
Beta. Yeah, it's on top. Yeah.
But the Stack Overflow initiative, I think that had a deadline, hadn't it?
Okay. Follow the GitHub 400. Yeah, I don't know. There is no word from GitHub about that apparently. So I don't know, but something, yeah, just mentioning that might be useful. Good. Other topics? So that's it. Thanks everyone. Please comment on Gitter for anything. Thanks for the demos. And see you on Thursday/next Tuesday. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.